And our fifth main topic today is kind of an off the top. We didn't have an email come in for it, but this was something that I just kind of took note of this morning, and I thought it was something we should probably kind of address. Now, of course, the MCU on Disney Plus kicked off in a big way with WandaVision. I thought WandaVision was absolutely spectacular. I got hooked on that show from episode 1, and every week, like my whole life for 2 months, was just counting down to the next episode of WandaVision. It was absolutely fantastic. I loved it. It combined great things of mystery with heart, an examination of a woman's grief, all these sorts of things. They did so much stuff. They covered new ground a lot, Rob, with WandaVision, doing kind of stuff that we hadn't seen before in the MCU, which I thought was great. Now, one of the big speculations going around was, well, we know that Wanda, I should say, is going to be in Doctor Strange 2. We knew that. That was a fact. So, could we see Doctor Strange pop up in WandaVision? Well, it turns out that in an earlier draft of the show, they were going to include Doctor Strange in WandaVision. As a matter of fact, the whole commercials thing, the initial concept of the commercials during WandaVision was going to be subliminal type messages that Doctor Strange, we would find out at the end of the series that Doctor Strange was sending those to her, and that Doctor Strange was going to pop up in the finale. Now, of course, as they got closer to doing the show, Kevin Feige decided that wasn't right for the show, and they decided to pull it out of the show. Now, he gave his explanation. Kevin Feige was being interviewed about this, and he gave his explanation as to why they decided to pull him out. And there's 3 things he said. 2 things are the main reasons he pulled him out that make total sense. And the 3rd thing he said was kind of an off-the-cuff thing at the end that is the one thing that everybody is latching on to. And let's talk about that here for a second, shall we? We're going to jump over to our Campea classroom for a moment here. So why was there no Doctor Strange? This is Kevin Feige's actual quote. This is what Kevin Feige actually said about why Doctor Strange was pulled out. He said the following. Some people might say, oh, it would have been so cool to see Doctor Strange, but it would have taken away from Wanda. We didn't want the end of the show to be commoditized to going into the next movie. Here's the white guy. Let me show you how power works. All right. So I want to propose, let's read this again. Some people might say, oh, it would have been so cool to see Doctor Strange, but ultimately it would have taken away from Wanda. We didn't want the end of the show to be commoditized to go to the next movie. Here's the white guy. Let me explain how let me show you how power works. All right. So obviously the one thing that insecure males all over the world are grasping onto and talking about is that last little line he threw in there about, here's the white guy saving you, right? And that's all anybody's talking about. And it's idiotic. But we will talk about that in a second. The first thing we should talk about are what Kevin Feige really said were the 2 main reasons why they needed to take Doctor Strange out before they got to shooting it. The first reason that he gave is that it would have taken away from Wanda. And he's absolutely right.
Yes.
There is a reason that Spider-Man doesn't show up at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because it's not Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Spider-Man. This is their story to tell their context and their development. It would have been idiotic to have Spider-Man show up at the end of the day and save everything. It would have taken away. It is their show. It's their story. There are lots of stories about Spider-Man. He's popping up in everything. He pops up in Civil War. He pops up in the Avengers, in the Endgame stuff. He's popping up all over the place. He's getting his 3rd movie. It would have taken away from Falcon and Winter Soldier to just have the bigger superhero show up at the end and save the day. It just would have taken away from it. Rob, you got to remember, there are now, I think we're at 25. If you count Disney Plus stories, I believe we're now at 25. 25 MCU stories between the movies and the Disney Plus series. This is Wanda's first thing that she's leading. This is the first thing she's had to lead. She's been a guest star in a couple of things. This was her first thing to lead. By the way, out of 25, this is only the second one that a woman has led. All the other 23 have all been male-led. This is only the second time they've had a woman-led story. But this is her first one to really shine. To have Doctor Strange, I completely agree with Kevin Feige because, Rob, when we were talking about months ago the possibility of Doctor Strange showing up, and there were pros and cons, but one of the things I said was it would just detract from Wanda. This is supposed to be Wanda and Vision's story. Really, it was more Wanda's story than Vision, but it would have detracted. And Kevin Feige apparently knew that because Kevin Feige said it would have taken away from Wanda if we suddenly had Doctor Strange show up to save the day. The second one is even more important. It would have commoditized WandaVision. You know what WandaVision would have been if Doctor Strange shows up at the end? It would have been Spider-Man 3. No, sorry, I take that back. It would have been The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Because by the time we got to the end of Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, one of the things that everybody, including us, I think, Rob, was kind of pissed off about was the fact that, so this wasn't even its own movie. This was just here to set up Sinister Six. That's all this movie was for. It was just there to set up Sinister Six. And I think if at the end, Doctor Strange comes in to save the day and everything in what is supposed to be Wanda and Vision's story, there could have been a very legitimate complaint that, so really the whole point of WandaVision was just to set up Doctor Strange too? And that's how it would have felt. It completely would have felt like this is just Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, the prelude. You could have just renamed WandaVision to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the prelude. So Kevin Feige recognized that. And remember, Rob, one of the things that we're always talking about the genius of Kevin Feige and how they've structured the MCU is the fact that you never have to watch one thing in order to watch another. Every single one of the MCU stories has been its own self-contained movie, and he never wants his stuff to feel like it's just a setup for the next thing, right? And that's one of the things he's always been there. So for Kevin Feige to come out and say that, number one, it would have taken away from Wanda, he's absolutely right, it would have. Number two, it would have commoditized the whole WandaVision, making it feel like it was just setting up Doctor Strange too. He's absolutely right. It's exactly what would have happened. And at the end of the day, it's absolutely the right decision that he didn't put in Doctor Strange. For the same reason that he didn't have Spider-Man show up in Falcon the Winter Soldier, the same reason that Rhodey didn't show up, War Machine didn't show up at the end of Falcon the Winter Soldier, the reason all the heroes don't always show up at the end of everything, there was no reason to have him there, would have detracted. Now, the one thing that everybody wants to focus on is the white guy thing. But here's the thing. Again, Kevin Feige's right. Rob, we were just talking about how in all the MCU, and again, I might be off by one or two with the number, but I think it's 25. I think that's where we're at. It might be 26, it might be 24, whatever. But out of 25 MCU projects that have now come out, I believe 22 of them are white male led. I think 22 out of the 25 have white male leads. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It just is. That's just what the number is. 22 out of the 25 because you had Captain Marvel, you had Black Panther, and we've had WandaVision. Sorry. Four. Because Captain Marvel, Falcon the Winter Soldier is led by Anthony Mackie. It is really more his story than Bucky's. So we'll say 4. So let's say 21 out of the 25 have been white male led. But more importantly, Rob, it's only the second female lead one that they've had. Kevin Feige, I think all he was pointing out was, look, they would have been open to a lot of criticism if in only the second female-led Marvel project to come out, they had to have a man come in at the end to save the day for her and explain everything to her. I think he's just recognizing they would have opened themselves up to a lot of criticism. And he's not wrong. It would have opened them up to a lot of criticism. Now, look, I will say this, and let me be clear about this. If it weren't for the fact that these two reasons were here, that it would have taken away from Wanda, and it would have, and that it would have turned, WandaVision into nothing but a prelude for Doctor Strange 2, and it would have. If this third comment was the only thing that Kevin Feige said, I would have probably taken issue with it. It's like, look, the story comes first. If it just so happens that the story completely flowed into and required Doctor Strange to show up, then don't avoid doing what is the natural narrative to do just because Doctor Strange happens to look like me, a pasty white dude. Don't avoid doing it just because of this. If that was your only reason for doing it, don't do that. That would be dumb. But the fact of the matter is that because of these first two main reasons, narratively, it would have been a mistake to bring Doctor Strange in. It was the right thing. Look, guys, we all got to accept moving forward. We have this discussion on here all the time, Rob, that every single time there's a Marvel or a DC movie, why didn't everybody else in the Justice League show up? Why didn't all the other Avengers come? It's always with every single MCU thing. We just have to accept that they set up these stories so these individual characters can have their stories. So, Rob, to me, while I think it just proves once again why Kevin Feige is the smartest guy in the room. That's just what it proves to me again. Anyway, Rob, you had a chance to see these comments. What did you make of them?
Well, what's really interesting is his comment is answering what the critics would have said.
Yes.
You know, that's what he's doing. He himself is not coming out with some kind of doctrine saying that, well, we're against having a white male savior in this story. He's just saying that I already know what the criticisms would have been. And like you pointed out, John, very astutely, it would have totally taken away from Wanda's story. I mean, if you have Doctor Strange here the whole time, it's like, oh, this poor girl, she needs Stephen Strange to come in and solve her problems for her. And I think that that it would have been a valid criticism. I don't think anyone would have liked the ending. Do I think WandaVision has a perfect ending? I do not. But if they just threw in Doctor Strange, I would have felt it was sort of a betrayal of what happens. I mean, you know, it's like in real life, John. You have lots of friends. They're scattered all over the world. And whenever something happens to you or you don't involve all of your friends or all of your coworkers in everything that you do. And I find it strange, like you pointed out, why didn't the Avengers show up? We don't even know the status of the last time we saw the Avengers. Their base was rubble. You know, some of them were dead. And everyone's scattered to the four winds, and we don't know anything about where the Avengers are. Maybe they were in no position to show up. Who knows where Doctor Strange is after we've lost the Infinity Stones in our universe, and there's all kinds of Mordo is still out there. It's not like he doesn't have better things to do. And remember, WandaVision took place over the course of just a few days. And it's not like this whole thing, the world at large knew about this. It was.
By the way, Rob, I just want to interrupt you just for a second, just to really emphasize how smart of a thing you just said. That is so key what you just said, that everybody loses sight of this. This isn't like Falcon the Winter Soldier that literally takes place over the scope of months. This was a story that took place within a scope of a couple of days. And I just think that was a really, really good point that you made.
You know, it's not like, well, this town's been encased in this mystical bubble for months. What's happening? You know, it's not like that. I mean, this probably took place in less time than that ship that was locked in the Suez Canal for like a week. You know, they finally moved it out of there. And how many of us went and visited that? So I just think that it was, you just need to remember that. And not everybody, not everything is happening all the time. People have their own lives. And when we see these films, we're seeing specific incidents. But if you think about the way you lead your lives, sometimes months go by before you see your friends, or years. So it's not like where's the who are you going to call now if you need the Avengers? You can't call Black Widow. You can't call Steve Rogers. Who do you call? Is there a receptionist? That base doesn't even exist anymore. So I don't know. I think what Kevin Feige is saying, I think we all need to take a deep breath before we jump online and like, oh my God, Kevin Feige's he's saying that we can't have white men be heroes anymore. Sure we can. He made how many movies that show that? I don't think he's being political. I think he's actually addressing the critics that would have pounced all over them if they did what they were going to, if they had Doctor Strange show up as literally a Deus Ex Machina at the end.
I saw one thing that was basically saying this is proof that Kevin Feige wants the systematic destruction of white male culture and blah, blah, blah. And again, we go back to just that number. All right. Marvel, again, has done 25 stories so far, counting movies and Disney Plus show. Let's say 26 if you want to say, since Loki is only 1 month away. Let's say 26.
27 because Black Widow's done.
Well, Black Widow's done, coming out in June, so we'll go 27. Let's say 27. So we got Loki, Black Widow, and then the rest. So we got 27. 24, 23 of the 27 are white male leads. 23 out of the 27 are white male leads. Tell me again how Kevin Feige has a bias against white men when 23 out of the 27 have been. I'm not saying, again, I'm just saying that it's clear that he clearly doesn't have a problem doing stories with white male leads. That is clearly not the issue. And there's a lot of narrative spinning out there right now trying to say that that's what's at hand here, that Kevin Feige he hates the idea of having white male leads. 23 out of the 27 that we've got on the books right now have been white male leads. So clearly facts are not in the corner of that. But now, Rob, it's still open for debate about whether or not Kevin Feige is correct. He usually is, about the fact that Doctor Strange showing up would have taken away from Wanda, or the fact that having Doctor Strange show up just would have made WandaVision a prequel to Doctor Strange 2. And you can have that debate. I mean, that's up for interpretation, all that kind of stuff. You can have that debate. I personally think Feige's right in that. But it's the other thing that everybody else seems to be latching on. It's despite the fact that it flies in the face of all actual logic. But it is what it is. Question is for you guys. What did you think about this whole hubbubaloo going on right now? Jump on down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.